She screamed like someone just torched her favorite yoga mat. I was halfway through a cold beer on the back porch of my grandfather's old lake cabin, soaking in the sunset and the chorus of crickets, when I heard that voice for the first time, high-pitched, sharp as broken glass, and aimed directly at me. "Excuse me, sir, you can't have that fence like that. It's obstructing the natural beauty of the shoreline." I turned slowly. There she stood, hands on hips, blonde bob bouncing with every exaggerated inhale. Tight pastel windbreaker, shiny white sneakers, clipboard, always a clipboard. She looked like a PTA president on steroids. I'd later learn her name was Cindy, but I didn't need it then. Every cell in my body already knew. I was staring down a full-blown HOA Karen. If you've ever had a neighbor like this, one that makes you feel like a trespasser on your own land, you already know where this is going. And if not, buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment if you've ever had to deal with someone who weaponized community rules just to make your life miserable. Let me rewind a bit. This cabin had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with his bare hands after coming home from Korea. It wasn't fancy, a 2-bedroom timber frame with a warped dock and a rusting grill that hadn't seen a burger since Bush was president. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was peace. After losing my job during a corporate restructuring and watching my long-term girlfriend walk out with the dog, I needed peace. What I didn't need was Cindy. She moved into the freshly built modern monstrosity 3 lots over. Sleek lines, jet black metal roofing, and a boat lift that probably cost more than my entire property. Within 48 hours of moving in, she was knocking on my door. And not to introduce herself. There are very specific guidelines in our HOA packet regarding lawn maintenance and shoreline uniformity, she said before I could even say hello. "You have wild thistle growing near your fence line. It's invasive." "I like the look," I said, trying to keep it light. "Good for the bees." She didn't smile. "We'll be issuing a citation." And she did. 2 days later, a yellow slip was taped to my mailbox, a courtesy notice of non-compliance, citing articles I'd never read in a booklet I never received. I wasn't even aware I was in an HOA. Turns out, a few years back, the lakeside community decided to formalize. My grandfather had refused to sign, but apparently that didn't matter. Implied acceptance through property usage, they called it. The next month was a whirlwind of absurdities. I got dinged for having non-compliant exterior lighting, a string of dim Edison bulbs on the porch. I was fined for leaving my canoe upside down on the dock. The real kicker? A written warning for unauthorized color tones on my cabin trim. It was cedar, natural, but apparently it clashed with the cohesive visual palette of the lakeshore. Every time I tried to push back, Cindy was there, clipboard in hand, quoting bylaws like a lawyer on caffeine. I tried being polite. I offered to discuss concerns over coffee. She declined. I invited her to a community barbecue. She reported it as an unpermitted public event. I even tried ignoring her completely until the day I found a local inspector walking the edge of my property with a measuring wheel, saying he was responding to multiple complaints. And then came the fence. It wasn't fancy, just a 4-foot wooden boundary, weathered by time, separating my lawn from the woods. My grandfather put it up back in the 80s to keep deer from chewing up his tomatoes. It had stood for decades without issue, until Cindy. One morning I woke up to the sound of hammers. I looked out my window and froze. A hired crew was taking down my fence. Not just taking it down, tearing it out. Posts yanked, boards tossed, everything piled onto a flatbed like garbage. I stormed outside. "What the hell is going on?" I barked. The foreman blinked. "Work order says this fence violates HOA guidelines. We were told to remove it." "By who?" "Cindy," he shrugged and pointed. And there she was, standing near the dock in full athleisure glory, sipping something from a stainless tumbler, like she was watching a brunch show. I lost it. I marched down, my boots hitting the wet grass like thunder. She didn't flinch. "This is illegal," I said. "You're trespassing. That fence is on my land." "It violates the Lake Visibility Clause," she replied coolly. "Structures obstructing shoreline views are prohibited. Page 47, subsection D." That's a privacy fence, not a billboard. Same difference, she chirped. Oh, and by the way, your propane tank is visible from the path. You'll want to screen that. Deadline's next Friday. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my jaw so tight it felt like my molars would snap. I called the sheriff's office. They took a statement, told me it was a civil issue. I stood in the mud where my fence used to be and made a promise to myself. This war just went live. ChatGPT Skazal, part of me hoped that would be the end of it. That maybe after flexing her little HOA muscles and getting my fence torn down, Cindy would move on to harassing someone else. Maybe complain about the color of someone's mailbox or the angle of their flagpole. But no, I had apparently become her full-time project. The next week she stepped it up. Big time. First came the parking citations. Yes, parking. She claimed my truck was in violation for being parked parallel to the cabin, too close to the edge of my own gravel driveway. She left another notice, laminated this time, under my windshield wiper. Please correct positioning to match HOA drive-in parking layout per diagram B2. There was no diagram attached. Then it was my dock. She claimed it jutted too far into the lake and interfered with boat traffic patterns, whatever that meant. The dock had been there for 30 years. No one had ever complained. She filed a formal grievance with the county. I had to attend an actual hearing, over a 6-foot fishing dock. And all the while she smiled, like she was helping, like she was teaching me how to be a better neighbor. One evening, I caught her snapping pictures of my back porch from across the lot with her phone. I stepped outside. Can I help you? She didn't even look up. Just documenting. You've got 3 unapproved planters, and that wind chime is non-compliant due to sound projection. That wind chime had been a gift from my mother. I'll be honest with you, I didn't handle it well. I yelled, not proud of it, but I did. I told her to stay the hell off my land, that if I saw her creeping around again, there'd be consequences. She didn't respond, just tapped a few things on her screen and walked away like nothing happened. The next day I got a notice from the HOA legal rep threatening me with aggressive behavior and verbal assault of an association officer. It was psychological warfare, death by 1,000 paper cuts. She wanted me gone, wanted my cabin bulldozed and replaced with another one of her glass and stone mansions. And when I didn't cave, she turned the screw tighter. She started parking her SUV, a brand new matte black Escalade, at the edge of her property, which just happened to be directly across from the gravel access to my dock. At first I thought it was a coincidence. Then I noticed the pattern. Every time I planned to take my fishing boat out, there it was, blocking my angle, taking up just enough room to make turning my trailer a nightmare. She knew exactly what she was doing. The final straw came on a Saturday morning. I was loading lumber from the back of my truck, planning to start a small deck extension I'd been dreaming of for years. Cindy came strolling over in a neon yellow hoodie, coffee mug in hand. You'll need a permit for that, she said, not even pretending to be neighborly. I didn't answer. And that pile of wood? Unsecured building materials are a safety hazard under Article 9.4. I'll be filing a report this afternoon. I kept hammering. My blood boiled with every word she said. Then she smirked. Also, the grass along your side path is exceeding regulation height. Just a heads up. That's when it clicked. I looked over at her Escalade, parked again, like a fortress in front of my access road, and something in me shifted. Later that afternoon, I didn't go fishing. I didn't keep building the deck. Instead, I drove into town to an equipment rental place I knew just outside the industrial park. I'd used them before for some heavy-duty landscaping. Good folks, no questions. The guy at the counter raised an eyebrow when I told him what I needed. A skid steer? He asked. You doing some clearing? Yeah, I said. Need to level out some ground by the water. Prep for a new foundation. You got experience driving one? I nodded. Couple summers on a ranch in Montana. He grinned. All right then. Just don't take it joyriding. I signed the paperwork, paid in cash, drove it home on a trailer behind my truck. Cindy didn't notice at first, too busy pruning her hydrangeas or bullying squirrels. I unloaded the machine slowly, parked it near the rear path where she couldn't see it from her kitchen window. covered it with a tarp. That night I slept better than I had in months. The next morning I brewed a pot of coffee, sat on the porch and waited. Sure enough, the Escalade was there. Same spot, gleaming like a monument to passive aggression. I pulled the tarp off, fired up the engine. The rumble echoed off the trees like a waking giant. Birds scattered. I could feel the vibration in my ribs. She came outside around the time I backed the skid steer up the gravel path. Her face scrunched in confusion, then narrowed into suspicion. I didn't look at her, didn't speak, just adjusted the throttle, lowered the front loader, and started moving. Technically, I stayed on my side, mostly, but the gravel beneath her SUV's tires was soft, the kind that shifts when heavy machinery rolls nearby. I made a pass, then another. The third time, my left track just happened to carve too close. The edge of the loader nudged the Escalade's bumper. A scrape, then a dent, then a full-on, very unfortunate accident. She screamed. I kept going, backed up, did it again. She ran forward, waving her arms like a madwoman. I turned the engine off as she reached the cab. "You've lost your mind," she shrieked. I took off my gloves, hopped down, looked her right in the eye. "Sorry," I said. "I guess I must have misjudged the turning radius. You know, tight spot and all. Maybe don't park so close next time." Her face turned purple. "You did that on purpose. That's assault. That's destruction of property." I shrugged. "Then call the cops." And she did. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, I was leaning against the skid steer with a thermos in hand when a sheriff's SUV rolled up. Deputy Cartwright, mid-40s, ex-Marine, the kind of guy who believed in solving things with a handshake and a warning before citations, stepped out. We'd spoken before. He'd handled the fence situation, or rather, hadn't handled it, because as he said, HOA drama ain't exactly a criminal code violation. Today, though, he looked tired before he even reached me. "Jake," he said, nodding, "got a call about a vehicle being, compromised." I nodded toward the Escalade. It was still there, but barely. The bumper was crumpled, a headlight cracked like an eggshell. One of the rear wheels was angled weird, like it had been pushed off alignment. Cindy stood 10 feet away, arms folded so tightly her nails were digging into her own arms. Her face was twisted into something between fury and victory, like she knew she'd finally got me. "She's saying you intentionally ran into her vehicle with that thing," Cartwright said, gesturing to the machine behind me. I took a sip of my coffee. "I was grading the slope," I said, "trying to level out the ground near the dock. It's uneven back there. Didn't even see her SUV until the last second." "You hit it more than once." "Terrain's slippery," I said. "Had to readjust a few times." Cartwright sighed. He knew exactly what this was, and I could see in his eyes he didn't want to deal with it any more than I did. "Jake," he said quietly, "you're going to have to file an incident report. Might be insurance, maybe even court." I nodded. "Understood." Then Cindy pounced. "Insurance?" she barked. "This is criminal damage. He attacked my vehicle with construction equipment. That's not negligence. That's violence." Cartwright turned to her slowly. "Ma'am, I need you to step back and let me finish with Mr. Kavanaugh here." "You're just letting him lie," she yelled, pointing a trembling finger. "This is why our community's going to hell. People like him, thinking they can bulldoze over the rules." That's when something cracked. Not in me, I'd already passed that point, but in Cartwright. He turned on her, sharp and professional. "Ma'am, I've got 3 documented complaints from you this month alone, all against this man. Fence, dock, parking, noise. Each time we've come out, there was no clear violation. This might be the first time something actually happened, and you're screaming like it's World War III. Cindy blinked. He kept going. "Do you have proof he did this on purpose?" "Of course I do. He hates me." "That's not proof. That's a feeling." "You have any camera footage? Witnesses?" Silence. "I'm going to write up a property damage report," he said finally. "You can file with your insurance and take it to small claims if you want. That's your right." "What about charges?" "Unless you can prove intent, it's civil, not criminal. And even then, good luck convincing a jury that someone operating a skid steer on soft ground in their own yard committed felony assault on a car parked half in their access path. Her jaw dropped. He turned back to me. I'd get a lawyer, Jake, just in case. I already called one, I said. Figured we'd get here eventually. Cindy exploded. You're all the same. Men covering for men. That thing is worth more than his entire dump of a cabin. Then maybe you should have parked it somewhere else, Cartwright muttered and walked back to his SUV. I watched as she stood frozen, shaking, humiliated. I could have gloated, could have said 100 things I'd rehearsed in the mirror for weeks. But I didn't. I just walked past her, climbed the porch steps, and went back inside. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No notices, no citations, no new complaints. Her Escalade was gone. Towed, I assumed. Replaced by an old Subaru with a cracked taillight. Maybe it was a rental. Maybe it was humility. A week later, a letter came in the mail. Certified from the HOA. It was a formal notification. Cindy had been removed as HOA chair by a majority vote. Multiple residents had filed complaints of abuse of power, harassment, and misappropriation of HOA funds. Apparently, she'd been billing the HOA for inspections and consultations with lawyers she never actually hired. I sat on the porch that evening, wind chime rustling gently above me. The lake was quiet, peaceful, the way it used to be. Around dusk, I saw her, Cindy, alone, walking down the gravel path. No clipboard, no sunglasses, no fake smile. Just a woman who looked smaller than I remembered. She didn't say anything as she passed my cabin. Didn't look my way. I didn't wave. Didn't have to. Sometimes justice doesn't come with sirens or courtrooms. Sometimes it comes on tracks, with a diesel engine, and just enough torque to remind a bully that even the quiet ones can push back. ChatGPT Skazal, it's been 6 months now. The lake has gone back to being what it always was for me, a place to breathe. A place without clocks or deadlines. Just the sound of water slapping against the dock, loons calling out in the dark, and the soft groan of pine trees leaning with the wind. After the HOA vote, things shifted fast. Cindy's iron grip collapsed like a rotted pier. Turns out no one really liked her. They were just afraid of her. All it took was someone to finally push back, and not just verbally. She didn't stick around long after that. Sold the house to a real estate investor. Rumor is she moved back to the city, maybe to restructure her career, whatever that means. Her old property sat empty for a while, its manicured lawn slowly losing the battle against dandelions. I can't say I felt sorry. The new owner, young couple from out of state, early 30s, brought a golden retriever, 2 kayaks, and zero interest in HOA drama. We had beers last weekend. They even helped me stain the new fence I put up. A bigger one, stronger, made from pressure-treated lumber with reinforced posts. Nobody's tearing it down this time. The HOA itself changed too. After Cindy was booted, a few longtime residents stepped up, voted in a new board, scrapped most of the ridiculous bylaws. No more approved plant lists or view corridor protections. They even issued a formal apology for the lack of oversight and mishandling of community resources. It's printed, framed, hanging in my hallway, right next to my granddad's old fishing hat. But the truth is, I'm still not proud of everything I did. That skid steer move, it wasn't an accident. Not really. I told myself it was poetic justice, frontier logic, an honest mistake with benefits. But deep down, I know it was a release. A moment where I let the anger win. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about what could have gone wrong. Someone could have gotten hurt. The law could have swung harder the other way, but it didn't. And maybe, just maybe, because I didn't swing first, but swung back, people saw something in that. Saw how far one person can be pushed when you poke them with rules and bylaws and smug little smirks long enough. You might think this story ends with regret or redemption, or maybe a lawsuit, but it ends like this. Me, on the dock, a beer in one hand. Dog curled up beside me, sunset bleeding orange across the water. Somewhere across the lake, a loon cries out, long, lonely, beautiful. And I think, Not every war is worth fighting, but some are worth finishing. There's one last thing I haven't told anyone. Not my friends in town, not the new neighbors, not even Deputy Cartwright. The night after the incident, the night after the bulldozer tracks cut more than just gravel, I found something tucked under my front doormat. It wasn't a complaint, it was a letter. Handwritten, no envelope. Just folded once, neat and tight. It read, "You were right to stand up. We've all been too afraid. Thank you." Lot 17. No name, just a lot number. At first I didn't know who that even was, but then I remembered. Lot 17 was the retired couple at the edge of the community. Barely ever left their porch, never spoke up during meetings. I'd seen them once standing near their hydrangeas while Cindy screamed at their grandson for running too fast on the path. That letter didn't justify what I'd done, but it mattered, because when you're up against someone like Cindy, someone who uses power not to lead, but to control, to punish, to bend people into fear, silence becomes complicity, and silence is heavy. It settles in your bones, but not anymore. Now, people say hi again. Kids ride bikes around the gravel loop without getting scolded. There's a community bonfire once a month, and no one needs a permit for it. Someone even painted a mural on the side of the clubhouse. A loon gliding across a glass lake. It's beautiful, peaceful, free. Sometimes when I sit out late and the trees are rustling just right, I wonder if Cindy ever thinks about what happened here, about how far she pushed things. Or maybe she's already moved on to the next neighborhood, the next clipboard, the next set of invisible lines to draw in the dirt. People like her don't change, but places do. And this place changed because someone finally said enough. So if you're out there, dealing with your own HOA bully, your own Cindy, your own ridiculous list of rules that smell more like control than care, hear me now. You don't have to be a bulldozer, but sometimes it helps to know how to drive one.